Still searching for his first points finish and warned by his team that his costly crashes cannot continue, Mick Schumacher is under serious pressure for the first time in his Formula 1 career. It's been a difficult 2022 season for Schumacher, who faces more scrutiny than most just for being the son of 7-time world champion Michael. But as a champion himself in Formula 3 and Formula 2, Mick's in Formula 1 on merit. The problem is, crashes, collisions and other setbacks are so far undermining his attempts to establish himself in his second season. And with Haas making it very clear that things need to improve, there is an increasingly intense spotlight on Schumacher, who has work to do to secure his F1 future. Schumacher is yet to score a point this season, while teammate Kevin Magnussen, who replaced Nikita Mazepin between the 2 pre-season tests, has 15 points and a best finish of 5th. While this is unfortunate given it's hurting Haas's efforts in the Constructors' Championship, there's been no more pressing concern for the team. Schumacher's had 2 big accidents so far in 2022, which follows a rookie campaign in which he impressed with his performance but also had multiple crashes. He now has 6 big accidents in 31 Grand Prix weekends, a rate of almost 1 in 5. That is way too many for a Formula 1 driver, especially when it doesn't even include other accidents like the clash with Sebastian Vettel that probably cost Schumacher a maiden points finish in Miami. It's a horrible position for Schumacher to be in, and he's the last person who wants this trend to continue. The first of this year's crashes was so big it stopped him from racing in Saudi Arabia, and immediately pushed Haas beyond its planned budget allowance for damage repairs. After Schumacher's second crash, which ended his race in Monaco with his car split in 2, team boss Günther Steiner said that Haas needed to work out where we go from here. That could have been taken a couple of ways, so we asked Steiner if that was simply a reference to finding a way to stop Schumacher crashing, or potentially something more serious, like Schumacher's long-term future being in question. And Steiner said, "It's a combination of all what you said." The reason this is so serious is because it puts Haas under increasing financial and production pressure. Building new parts is a significant use of human and financial resources, especially as Haas readies its first major update of the season and plans the rest of its development for the year. Its technical partner Dallara and major component supplier Ferrari had to be called upon to help, and Steiner said that if this continues, Haas will need to make sacrifices elsewhere. Steiner has admitted that another Schumacher crash will prompt a serious conversation because of what's at stake for the team in terms of cost and production of parts. But he is wary that putting more pressure on Schumacher could backfire. You may sympathise with Schumacher's biggest shunts this year and say he paid a very, very high price for tiny misjudgments, a fraction too far over the curb in Saudi and probably about 10 centimetres off the dry line in Monaco. Fine margins define Formula 1 though, and Mick's been on the wrong side of them too frequently now to just put it down to bad luck. These are costly misjudgments, not just quirks of fate. They may also be a sign of Steiner's greatest concern for Schumacher being realised. Steiner had said before the Monaco Grand Prix weekend that Schumacher's points drought, which we'll come to in just a moment, hadn't reached the point where he thought it risked hurting his performances. But he admitted his worry was desperation setting in and overdriving. And there have been signs of that, with some slightly risky moves such as the attempted pass on Vettel in Miami, and the big crashes may be part of this as well. We appreciate that any question marks over Mick Schumacher's F1 future might not be the most popular of topics, but if you at least like our explanation of the situation Schumacher finds himself in F1, then please give this video a thumbs up to show your support. And subscribe to our channel if you haven't already and you want to see more of our videos in the future. It's quick, it's free, it's easy to do, and it really helps us out. Haas would dearly love Schumacher to cut the crashes out and deliver on his potential. Inevitably, this will help him in his quest for points too. Schumacher is a good, intelligent driver, a popular person in the team and paddock with a great work ethic. And he's a good deal better than he's making himself look this season, during which Schumacher has moved up to 6th on the list of F1 starts without a point. The holder of that unenviable record is Luca Badoer, and he is still quite a way in front. But it's not great company for Schumacher to be keeping, especially as he's now adding a lot of races to his pointless tally while driving a more competitive car. Schumacher likened his most recent missed opportunity at the Canadian Grand Prix to making a cake but not finishing the frosting, after a power unit problem denied him a likely first points finish. He started from a career-best 6th place after a good performance in Montreal's wet qualifying session and ran comfortably inside the top 10 during the opening stint before a problem suddenly developed. He was instructed to stop the car while running between Esteban Ocon and Zhou Guanyu, who went on to finish 6th and 8th respectively. A surprisingly long exchange with race engineer Gary Gannon over the radio followed Schumacher pulling over and retiring from the race, a telling insight into how painful this was given the wider circumstances. It was the latest good opportunity that Schumacher has had to score points, with Miami and Spain the other notable chances that were missed for different reasons. Schumacher is becoming adept at finding the positives, but he at least didn't need to look too hard in Canada because the performance was an obvious silver lining. So far this season, Schumacher has tended to either be anonymous or find dramatic ways to miss out on getting into the top 10. The effective ultimatum from Haas to stop crashing was headline-grabbing and key to whether Schumacher has a future with the team, but his season has had other setbacks. Canada was finally shaping up to be a complete weekend, which is something Schumacher's been missing so far in 2022. He looked really at home in the wet conditions and did a great job. He was very happy and, given he's under a lot of scrutiny, felt it proved his credentials as an F1 driver. That was a slightly premature declaration purely because there was still the race to do, so it's a bold thing to say after qualifying. But the grid position was a timely reminder of Schumacher's potential, so he can be forgiven for feeling pleased with himself, and he did at least back it up with his performance early in the Grand Prix. Schumacher knows better than anybody that he cannot afford to repeat his costly crashes or keep failing to score points. It matters for Schumacher's current form, but also his future F1 prospects. If Haas runs out of patience, which will be justified if these trends continue, then Schumacher's reputation might also have suffered too much damage for another team to pick him up. Haas and other teams can only judge him on reality rather than theoretical potential, so the stakes are high, especially as long-time supporter Ferrari has already indicated Schumacher is not a medium-term option because it's signed Carlos Sainz to at least the end of 2024. Schumacher wants to use the pressure he's facing as motivation. He's admitted that there is a need to be a bit cautious because the team has to be conservative with some of its parts, but he's also said the pressure he feels this season is pretty much the same as he's faced before. He just may now need to use it in a different way, calling it more motivating and giving him more of a different dynamic. Canada may have been a good example of that, as the conditions in qualifying were ripe for a costly error, yet Schumacher starred. There are some parallels here with his title-winning Formula 3 and Formula 2 seasons, which both kicked into life in the second half of the campaign. Schumacher agreed with that comparison when we put it to him at the recent Azerbaijan Grand Prix, stating that he was in a difficult position, was under pressure, and that made him go quicker. So with a smile he joked, "Feed the pressure." Schumacher has kept very calm in the wake of Haas's comments, accepting he must refine his approach and remaining confident that he's in a process of ticking off the boxes to get the results he and the team needs with a competitive midfield car. He always says he's not stressed by his current situation and believes it's just a matter of time before his results change, and his body language supports that. But he's also remained coy when asked when he will discuss his contractual situation with Haas, probably because he knows what matters most is how he responds on track, not just how calm he stays off it. While Canada was certainly impressive, Azerbaijan was not. After losing FP1 because of a reliability problem, Schumacher never really got his weekend going. He lacked pace the whole event and was a footnote in the Grand Prix, while teammate Magnussen looked set to score points before yet another engine problem. The cliche is that a driver is only as good as their last performance. After Azerbaijan, Schumacher looked below the level needed. After Canada, it's a different story. If he keeps performing like that, he will break his points duck sooner rather than later. To secure his F1 future altogether though, he needs to do a bit more. String together a bigger sequence of good performances, stop shunting, and try to save Haas a bit of money in the process.